In the days when Mesopotamia and the Middle and Far East were the center and perhaps the only known world, there was a man called Job. And Job perhaps was one of those very lucky men in life, because everything he turned his hand at, he was successful. He was an extremely good businessman. He was an extremely good farmer. He had acquired a fortune in cattle. They say that he had more than 10,000 cattle. And if you have 10,000 cattle, that means you must have a great number of servants who look after your property and your wealth. And he looked after them well. And in his own personal life, he had been very successful. He found a wife whom he loved. They had a wonderful relationship, and he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. But what was very special about Job was not just that he was a rich man, a successful man, a good father. He was a worshipful man. He was a man who never, for one moment of his life, ever took his eyes away from God. He thanked God every day for the blessings that God had given him. And just in case his children or his servants or his wife had forgotten, he would also stand in the place of his children, his servants, his wife, and thank God for them. He was the kind of man that God perhaps had hoped Adam would be in the Garden of Eden. But here was Job in the real world, and God was proud of him. Here was a man who worshipped him with every part of his soul, his spirit, and his being, and yet remained part of the world. And God was so proud. He said, look at this man, Job. Look at this man. Look how great and wonderful he is. I am so proud of my son, Job. Now, it so happened that the devil himself, Shaitan, was passing one day and saw all of this, and he looked at it and he said, ha, 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 ha. It all looks very good, God. But what about if you took everything away from Job? He's just thankful because you've given him so much. Take it away from him and then we'll see how he is. Well, for reasons we don't really know why, God took up that challenge. And the next day, when Job had just finished his prayers, a servant came. Master, the enemy has attacked and taken all your camels. Master, an enemy has taken all your sheep. Master, you have no cattle left. Master, a great tornado came. All your children were in the house. The tornado blew it down, and every one of your children is dead. And still Job said, what the good Lord gives, the good Lord can take away. The devil, he was still there looking. Yeah, you've taken everything away from him. He's got nothing left, sure, but He's still got his health. What happened if you took that away from him as well? And the next day, when Job woke up and he went to put his foot down on, these great sores had come at the bottom of his feet. He couldn't put his feet down, but when he went to touch, and then he began to realize that every single part of his body was covered in sores and blisters so painful that he couldn't sit, he couldn't stand, he couldn't lie. He was in perpetual pain. And it went on and on and on and on. And he was in such a state. Everybody heard of this. His 3 best friends came to see him. And when they saw the state that he had come in, they did not say a word, but sat down next to him and stayed silent for 7 days. And it was only at the end of those 7 days that they began to talk to him. Now, they were his friends, and they truly wanted to help him. And when they saw him in this state, they began to think amongst themselves, and they said, Job, this cannot have happened to you unless you have done something wrong. Now just go through it, go through everything. What is it that you might have done that has displeased God and caused God to punish you? And Job opened his mouth. I have done nothing wrong. And his friends were astonished, aghast. How can you say that? How can you say you haven't done anything wrong? You must have done something wrong. Because if you hadn't done something wrong, you wouldn't be in this state. Your children wouldn't be dead. You wouldn't have lost all your property. You wouldn't be in this terrible physical state. Oh, even his breath stank. And still he said, I have done nothing wrong. And I want to call out to God and say, God, I have done my best to worship you, to follow all of your commands. I have truly done that. And now I know that I'm nothing like a breath. As a breath leaves the mouth and it's gone, that's how a human is. Our life is so short, it's gone. And yes, that is me, but I have tried. And still these 3 friends were astonished that Job dare say these things outright to God. Find what it is you have done wrong and repent. And still, Job said, all I can say is that I curse the day I was born. I wish I had never been born to have such a life. This is what I curse, but I will not curse my God. And then Job just let out a great cry. And that was the cry of all humans who in their lives experience such suffering, and often they don't know why. That cry went out and it caused a great whirlwind And within that whirlwind, God himself suddenly appeared and spoke to Job. And Job listened, and God spoke. And God said, "Were you there when I laid the foundations of the world? Are you the father of the Jew? Are you the mother of the dawn? Do you feed the mountain goats when they are high up in the mountains in winter? Do you feed the ravens? Can you put a fish hook onto the nose of the great monster Leviathan? Can you do any of these things?" And while God was speaking, Job saw that the world that he knew, instead of getting smaller and smaller, was getting wider and wider and wider and full of more mystery and wonder than he had ever dreamed of. Job then spoke, and he said, "I had heard your word before, but now I see you. I repent with dust and ashes." And at that, God disappeared. And Job understood that he had no idea of the power, the wonder, the mystery of creation and of God himself. And God understood that. And the next day, when Job woke out, all those blisters had gone. All of his property returned to him. His wife had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. And all the blessings that had been taken away from him had been restored to him. But Job never, ever forgot the wonder of God, the wonder of creation that is so much greater than any human could ever understand. And to the end of his days, Job and his wife worshipped their God.